In this gripping story of love, betrayal, and redemption, follow the tumultuous journey of David and Jessica Collins. After 23 years of marriage and raising 2 daughters, their seemingly perfect life begins to unravel when Jessica seeks emotional solace in a colleague, Mark Thompson. As secrets are revealed and trust is shattered, David and Jessica must navigate the complexities of their relationship to find a path to healing. Join us as we delve into a cheating wife's journey, from betrayal to redemption, and explore the power of forgiveness, the strength of resilience, and the quest for a second chance. David Collins and Jessica Collins had been married for 23 years. They had built a beautiful life together, raising 2 lovely daughters, Emma and Lily, who were now both away at college. Their marriage had weathered the storms of youth, career changes, and the challenges of parenting. David had established a successful landscaping business that flourished into a multi-million-dollar venture, providing the family with a lifestyle beyond their dreams. Jessica, a real estate agent, was known for her charm and professionalism. To the outside world, they were the epitome of a happy, successful couple. It was a bright Monday morning on May 15, 2023. David was in the kitchen, brewing his morning coffee, while Jessica was seated at the kitchen table, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly. David noticed her unusual demeanor but decided to wait for her to speak. Jessica took a deep breath and looked at David with a mix of fear and determination in her eyes. "David, we need to talk," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. David sat down opposite her, sensing the gravity of the situation. "What is it, Jess? You look like you've seen a ghost." Jessica took another deep breath, her eyes welling up with tears. "David, I've been feeling very unhappy and lonely since the girls left for college. It's been hard for me, and I haven't known how to talk to you about it." David reached out to hold her hand, concern etched on his face. "Why didn't you tell me, Jess? We could have worked through this together." Jessica pulled her hand away gently, her tears now flowing freely. "I didn't know how to, David. And in my loneliness, I turned to someone else for emotional support. His name is Mark Thompson, and he's a colleague of mine." David felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He struggled to find his voice. "You're saying you've been involved with someone else?" Jessica shook her head quickly. "No, not involved. It's just been emotional support. But I told him I'd go on a date with him this Saturday." The room fell silent. David's mind raced as he tried to process what Jessica had just said. He had always believed their marriage was strong, that their love was unbreakable. Now, he felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. "Jessica," David finally said, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "Do you understand what you're saying? You're married to me, and you're planning to go on a date with another man?" Jessica nodded, her face crumpling with sorrow. "I know it sounds awful, David. But I need this. I need to know if there's something more out there, if I'm missing something in my life." David stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over. "How can you say that, after everything we've built together? Our life, our family, do they mean nothing to you?" Jessica sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "They mean everything to me, David. But I feel so lost, and I don't know what else to do." David's anger began to simmer down, replaced by a cold resolve. "If you need to do this, then go ahead. But know this, Jessica, you're risking everything. Our marriage, our family, our future. I hope it's worth it." Without another word, David stormed out of the house, leaving Jessica to her tears. David spent the rest of the day in a daze, his mind unable to focus on work. He replayed Jessica's words over and over in his head, feeling a deep sense of betrayal. That evening, he checked into the Marriott Hotel, needing some time away from the house to think. He knew he couldn't simply let this slide, he had to do something. The next morning, David called his old friend John Wilson, a private investigator, and explained the situation. "John, I need your help. Jessica's planning to go on a date with a colleague this Saturday, and I need to know everything about it. Can you tail them, get me some proof?" John agreed, understanding the urgency in David's voice. "I'll take care of it, David. You focus on keeping yourself together." Feeling a bit more in control, David then called his friend Tom Harris. Tom, I need a favor. Can you give me the number of that escort service you mentioned once? Tom was taken aback but didn't press for details. Sure, David, I'll text you the number. But are you sure about this? David sighed. No, I'm not. But I need to do something to get through this. By Friday evening, David had arranged to meet Emily White, an escort, at the Marriott. He explained his situation and his need for discretion. Emily agreed to help, understanding the delicate nature of the situation. On Saturday afternoon, as Jessica prepared for her date with Mark, David was filled with a mixture of anger and determination. He had John tailing Jessica and Mark, and he had Emily by his side. He was ready to face whatever came next, but deep down, he hoped that Jessica would come to her senses before it was too late. Jessica stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress. She felt a knot of guilt in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. She needed this night, she told herself. She needed to know if there was something more out there. As she walked out the door to meet Mark, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking away from everything she had ever known. David watched her leave from the window of the Marriott, his heart heavy with sorrow. He hoped that this night would bring clarity, one way or another. As the sun set, he prepared himself for the long night ahead, knowing that whatever happened, his life would never be the same again. David's mind was a whirlwind of emotions as he watched Jessica leave for her date with Mark. He felt betrayed, angry, and hurt, but beneath all that, there was a cold resolve to take control of the situation. If Jessica thought she could find solace in another man's company, he would show her that two could play at that game. After watching Jessica drive away, David took a deep breath and called John Wilson, the private investigator he had hired. John, she's on her way. Make sure you get everything. I need photos, videos, anything that shows what they're up to. Got it, David, John replied. I'll keep you updated throughout the night. With that settled, David turned his attention to the next part of his plan. He called Emily White, the escort he had arranged to meet at the Marriott. Emily, it's David. Are we still on for tonight? Yes, David, Emily replied. I'll be at the Marriott at 7 p.m. as we discussed. Great. I'll see you then, David said, hanging up the phone. He knew this was a drastic step, but he felt it was necessary to cope with the betrayal he felt. As the clock struck 7 p.m., David arrived at the Marriott hotel lobby, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. He spotted Emily sitting at the bar, looking poised and elegant. Her presence was a stark contrast to the turmoil he felt inside. He walked over and greeted her with a polite smile. Emily, thank you for meeting me, David said, taking a seat beside her. Of course, David. I'm here to help, Emily replied, her voice warm and reassuring. They ordered drinks and spent the next hour talking. David found it surprisingly easy to open up to Emily about his feelings of betrayal and hurt. Emily listened attentively, offering her support and understanding. As they talked, David felt a sense of relief, as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Around 8 p.m., David received a text message from John. He opened it to find several photos of Jessica and Mark at a fancy restaurant. They looked happy, smiling and laughing together. Seeing those photos ignited a fire of anger in David's heart, but he knew he had to stay composed. Is everything okay? Emily asked, noticing the change in his expression. Yeah, it's just hard to see her with him, David admitted, showing Emily the photos. Emily glanced at the photos and nodded sympathetically. I understand, David. But remember, tonight is about you. Let's focus on making sure you have a good time. Taking her advice to heart, David decided to let go of his anger for the moment and enjoy Emily's company. They left the bar and went to the hotel room David had booked. Inside, they talked more, sharing stories about their lives and finding comfort in each other's presence. Emily's warmth and understanding provided David with a sense of solace he hadn't felt in days. Meanwhile, Jessica and Mark were having dinner at a chic downtown restaurant. Jessica was trying to enjoy herself, but she couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that gnawed at her. She knew she was betraying David, and the realization weighed heavily on her heart. Jessica, are you okay? Mark asked, noticing her distracted demeanor. Jessica forced a smile. Yeah, I'm fine. Just a bit tired, that's all. Mark reached across the table and took her hand. I know this is difficult for you. If you want to talk about it, I'm here. Jessica appreciated his concern, but she couldn't bring herself to open up to him. Instead, she focused on the dinner and tried to push her worries aside. They finished their meal and decided to go to a nearby dance club. Back at the Marriott, David and Emily were sitting on the bed, talking and laughing. David felt a connection with Emily that he hadn't expected. She was more than just an escort. She was someone who understood his pain and offered genuine support. Thank you, Emily, David said, his voice filled with gratitude. You've made this night bearable for me. Emily smiled warmly. I'm glad I could help, David. You deserve to be happy. As the night went on, David and Emily grew closer. They eventually shared a passionate kiss, and David felt a surge of emotions he hadn't felt in years. It was a mixture of anger, desire, and a longing for connection. They spent the night together, finding comfort in each other's arms. The next morning, David woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing. He groggily reached for it and saw a message from John. It contained more photos and a video of Jessica and Mark dancing at the club. They looked intimate, their bodies close and their smiles genuine. The sight made David's heart ache, but it also fueled his determination to see this through. Emily stirred beside him and opened her eyes. Morning, David. Morning, Emily, David replied, forcing a smile. I need to check out soon and head home. I understand, Emily said, sitting up and stretching. If you need anything else, you know how to reach me. David thanked her and got dressed. He left the hotel with mixed feelings, knowing that his actions were a form of revenge but also realizing that they had brought him some measure of peace. As he drove home, he wondered what the future held for him and Jessica. When David arrived home, he found the house empty. Jessica hadn't returned yet, and he felt a pang of worry. He checked his phone for any messages from John but found none. Deciding to wait, he made himself a cup of coffee and sat in the living room, his mind racing with thoughts of what he would say to Jessica when she returned. Hours later, Jessica walked through the front door, looking exhausted and conflicted. She saw David sitting on the couch and hesitated for a moment before speaking. David, can we talk? She asked, her voice trembling. David looked up, his expression unreadable. Sure, Jess, let's talk. Jessica sat down across from him, taking a deep breath. I know what I did was wrong, and I can't begin to express how sorry I am. I was lost and confused, but that's no excuse for my actions. David listened, his heart heavy. Why, Jessica? Why did you feel the need to turn to someone else? Tears streamed down Jessica's face as she tried to explain. I felt so lonely and disconnected, David. When the girls left, it was like a part of me went with them. I didn't know how to reach out to you, and Mark was there, offering comfort. David's anger flared again, but he kept it in check. So, you thought going on a date with him would solve everything? No, I don't know what I was thinking, Jessica admitted. I just needed to feel something, anything, to fill the void. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. Jess, I love you, but I can't just forget what happened. You broke my trust, and that's not something that can be easily repaired. Jessica nodded, her eyes filled with regret. I understand, David. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. If you want me to leave, I will. But I hope we can find a way to work through this. David looked at her, his heart torn. I don't know, Jessica. It's going to take time, and I can't promise anything right now. They sat in silence, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. Both knew that their marriage had been irreparably changed, and the path to healing would be long and uncertain. As the days passed, David and Jessica tried to navigate their new reality. They agreed to seek counseling to address the issues in their marriage, hoping to find a way to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. David remained cautious, keeping a close eye on Jessica and maintaining a sense of distance. Meanwhile, David's relationship with Emily continued, albeit with a sense of guilt and confusion. He knew that his actions were a form of retaliation, but he also recognized that Emily had brought him comfort in a time of need. The weeks turned into months, and David and Jessica's counseling sessions began to show progress. They started to communicate more openly, addressing the underlying issues that had driven them apart. Slowly, they began to rebuild their bond, though the scars of betrayal lingered. David's relationship with Emily eventually ended, as he realized that he needed to focus on his marriage and the healing process. Emily understood and wished him well, knowing that their time together had served its purpose. In the end, David and Jessica's journey to reconciliation was filled with ups and downs. They learned valuable lessons about communication, trust, and the importance of facing challenges together. While their marriage would never be the same, they emerged stronger, with a renewed commitment to each other and their family. The experience left them both with a deeper understanding of the complexities of love and the resilience required to overcome betrayal. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they were determined to walk it together, hand in hand, as they rebuilt their life and love anew. David Collins felt a mix of satisfaction and dread as he drove home from the Marriott. The events of the previous night played on a loop in his mind: the warm companionship of Emily, the photos and videos John had sent of Jessica and Mark, and the emotional conversation he had with Jessica upon her return. He was determined to keep moving forward, to see his plan through to the end. His emotions were a tangled mess, but he knew he had to stay focused. That afternoon, as Jessica was getting ready for her open house, David sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, reviewing the photos and videos John had taken. He felt a stab of pain with each image of Jessica and Mark together, but he pushed it aside. He needed this evidence to confront Jessica properly. Jessica entered the kitchen, dressed in her professional attire, looking more composed than she had the previous night. "David, I have to leave for the open house. Will you be okay?" David nodded, his face expressionless. "I'll be fine. We need to talk when you get back." Jessica swallowed hard and nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. She left the house, leaving David alone with his thoughts. As the hours passed, David's anger and resolve solidified. He knew he needed to take the next step in his plan: visiting Mark's wife, Samantha Thompson. He gathered the photos and videos into a folder and prepared himself for the difficult conversation ahead. David drove to Samantha's address, feeling a mixture of guilt and determination. He knew this would be a painful revelation for her, but she deserved to know the truth about her husband. When he arrived, he took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Samantha answered, looking surprised to see a stranger at her doorstep. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Thompson, my name is David Collins. I need to talk to you about your husband, Mark," David said, trying to keep his voice steady. Samantha's expression shifted to one of concern. "What about Mark? Is he okay?" David shook his head. "He's fine, but there's something you need to know." "May I come in?" Samantha hesitated but then nodded, stepping aside to let David in. They sat down in the living room, and David handed her the folder. "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Mark has been seeing my wife, Jessica." Samantha's face paled as she opened the folder and saw the photos and videos. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked through the evidence. "I can't believe this. I thought we were happy. How could he do this to our family?" David felt a pang of sympathy for Samantha. "I'm truly sorry. I know how much this hurts. I found out about their affair just recently, and I couldn't let it continue without you knowing." Samantha wiped her tears and took a deep breath. "Thank you for telling me, David. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I appreciate your honesty." David nodded. "I understand. If you need anything or want to talk more, don't hesitate to reach out." Samantha managed a weak smile. "Thank you. I'll be in touch." David left Samantha's house, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. He had done what he believed was right, but the pain of betrayal lingered. He drove back home, wondering what the future held for both his family and Samantha's. That evening, Jessica returned home from the open house, looking exhausted. She found David sitting at the kitchen table, his expression somber. "David, we need to talk." David nodded. "Yes, we do. Sit down, Jessica." Jessica sat across from him, her heart pounding. "What is it, David?" David took a deep breath, trying to keep his emotions in check. "I went to see Samantha Thompson today. Jessica's eyes widened in shock. You told her? David nodded. She deserved to know the truth about her husband. I showed her the photos and videos John took of you and Mark. Jessica's face crumpled with guilt and sorrow. David, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. David's anger flared. Then why did it, Jessica? Why did you feel the need to go on a date with another man? Tears streamed down Jessica's face. I was lost and lonely, David. I didn't know how to reach out to you, and Mark was there, offering comfort. I made a terrible mistake, and I'm sorry. David's anger began to simmer down, replaced by a cold resolve. Jessica, this isn't just a mistake. It's a betrayal of our marriage and everything we've built together. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. Jessica sobbed, her heart breaking. David, please. I'll do anything to make things right. Just tell me what to do. David looked at her, his heart torn. We need to take this one step at a time. We'll start by going to counseling, but I can't promise anything beyond that. Jessica nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I'll do whatever it takes, David. I love you, and I want to save our marriage. The next morning, David and Jessica made an appointment with a marriage counselor. They knew it would be a long and difficult journey, but they were willing to try. David remained cautious, keeping a close eye on Jessica and maintaining a sense of distance. Meanwhile, David's relationship with Emily continued, though he felt increasingly conflicted about it. He knew that his actions were a form of retaliation, but he also recognized that Emily had brought him comfort in a time of need. The counseling sessions were challenging but gradually began to show progress. David and Jessica started to communicate more openly, addressing the underlying issues that had driven them apart. Slowly, they began to rebuild their bond, though the scars of betrayal lingered. David's relationship with Emily eventually ended, as he realized that he needed to focus on his marriage and the healing process. Emily understood and wished him well, knowing that their time together had served its purpose. In the end, David and Jessica's journey to reconciliation was filled with ups and downs. They learned valuable lessons about communication, trust, and the importance of facing challenges together. While their marriage would never be the same, they emerged stronger, with a renewed commitment to each other and their family. The experience left them both with a deeper understanding of the complexities of love and the resilience required to overcome betrayal. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they were determined to walk it together, hand in hand, as they rebuilt their life and love anew. As the weeks passed, David and Jessica's marriage counseling sessions continued. Each session was filled with emotional confrontations, difficult truths, and small moments of breakthrough. Despite the progress, David still felt the sting of betrayal every time he looked at Jessica. He was committed to the counseling, but he remained cautious, his trust in her still fragile. One evening, after an especially intense counseling session, Jessica sat alone in the living room, reflecting on her actions and their consequences. She realized that she had jeopardized everything she held dear for a fleeting sense of excitement. The weight of her actions pressed down on her, and she felt an overwhelming sense of regret. Jessica decided to take a step that she hoped would demonstrate her commitment to making amends. She wrote a heartfelt letter to David, expressing her deepest apologies and outlining the steps she was willing to take to rebuild their trust. She poured her heart into the letter, hoping it would convey the sincerity of her remorse. When David returned home that evening, he found the letter on the kitchen table. He read it carefully, feeling a mixture of sadness and hope. Jessica's words were genuine and heartfelt, and he could see that she was truly remorseful. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. The next morning, David and Jessica had a long conversation about their future. They agreed to continue their counseling and to work on rebuilding their relationship, but David made it clear that it would take time for him to fully trust her again. Jessica nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. I know it will take time, David. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. As part of their efforts to rebuild their relationship, Jessica decided to cut off all contact with Mark. She sent him a brief message, explaining that their interactions had caused too much pain and that she needed to focus on repairing her marriage. Mark responded with understanding, agreeing that it was the best course of action for both of them. Jessica also decided to make changes in her daily routine to ensure she was prioritizing her relationship with David. She started cooking dinner more often, planning special date nights, and making a conscious effort to communicate openly with him. She wanted David to see that she was fully committed to their marriage. Meanwhile, David continued to struggle with his own feelings of anger and betrayal. He often found himself thinking about Emily and the comfort she had provided during his darkest days. He missed the simplicity of their relationship, but he knew that his future lay with Jessica. One evening, as they were sitting on the couch watching TV, Jessica turned to David and said, "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I can't change the past. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I love you, David, and I'm committed to making this work." David looked at her, his expression softening. "I love you too, Jessica. It's just going to take time for me to heal." Jessica nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand, and I'm willing to be patient. I'll do whatever it takes." As the days turned into weeks, David and Jessica continued to make progress. Their counseling sessions became more productive, and they started to find ways to reconnect emotionally. They took long walks together, reminisced about their early years of marriage, and slowly began to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. One weekend, David suggested they take a trip to the mountains, a place they had loved to visit when their daughters were younger. Jessica agreed, and they spent a few days hiking, talking, and enjoying each other's company. The trip helped them reconnect on a deeper level, and David began to feel a glimmer of hope for their future. Despite the progress, there were still moments of tension and doubt. David occasionally found himself questioning Jessica's actions, and Jessica sometimes struggled with feelings of guilt and shame. But they were committed to working through their issues, and they continued to support each other through the ups and downs. One evening, as they were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, Jessica turned to David and said, "I know we've been through a lot, and I know it hasn't been easy. But I'm grateful for this second chance, and I promise I won't take it for granted." David smiled, taking her hand in his. "I'm grateful too, Jess. We've come a long way, and I'm starting to believe that we can get through this." Jessica squeezed his hand, feeling a sense of relief and hope. "I believe we can too, David. As long as we have each other, we can face anything." As they sat together, watching the sun dip below the horizon, David and Jessica felt a renewed sense of commitment to each other. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they were determined to face it together, hand in hand. The following months were filled with continued progress and occasional setbacks. David and Jessica continued their counseling sessions and made a conscious effort to improve their communication. They learned to express their feelings more openly and to listen to each other without judgment. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when Jessica decided to volunteer at a local women's shelter. She wanted to give back to the community and find a way to channel her guilt into something positive. David supported her decision, and he even joined her on a few occasions, finding the experience both humbling and rewarding. Jessica's volunteer work gave her a sense of purpose and helped her to heal emotionally. She met women who had been through far worse situations than her own, and their resilience inspired her. She realized that she had the strength to overcome her mistakes and to rebuild her life with David. David, too, found solace in helping others. He started mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing his experiences and offering advice. He found that giving back helped him to heal and to find a sense of peace. One evening, after returning from the shelter, Jessica and David sat down to talk. Jessica shared some of the stories she had heard and how they had impacted her. David listened, feeling a deep sense of admiration for her strength and compassion. "You've changed, Jess," David said, his voice filled with emotion. "I can see how much this experience has affected you. I'm proud of you." Jessica smiled, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you, David. I feel like I've finally found a way to make amends for what I did. And I'm grateful for your support." David took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We're in this together, Jess. And I'm starting to believe that we can come out of this stronger than ever." As the months turned into years, David and Jessica continued to rebuild their marriage. They faced challenges and setbacks, but they remained committed to each other and to their healing process. Their counseling sessions became less frequent, and they found new ways to connect and support each other. David's trust in Jessica gradually returned, and he began to let go of the anger and hurt that had once consumed him. He realized that their experience had taught them valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. Jessica, too, found a sense of peace and fulfillment. Her volunteer work continued to inspire her, and she remained dedicated to making positive changes in her life. She was grateful for the second chance she had been given and determined not to take it for granted. Their daughters, Emma and Lily, noticed the changes in their parents and were grateful for the renewed sense of stability in their family. They admired their parents' strength and commitment to each other and learned valuable lessons about forgiveness and perseverance. In the end, David and Jessica's journey was one of growth and transformation. They emerged from their ordeal stronger and more connected, with a deeper understanding of each other and their relationship. They knew that the road ahead would not always be smooth, but they were confident in their ability to face it together, hand in hand, as they rebuilt their life and love anew. Their story was a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and the human spirit's capacity for resilience. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for a new beginning. As we reach the conclusion of A Cheating Wife's Journey, from betrayal to redemption, we witness the remarkable transformation of David and Jessica Collins. Through their dedication to healing and commitment to each other, they emerge stronger and more connected than ever before. Their journey teaches us that even in the face of deep betrayal, love and resilience can pave the way to forgiveness and renewal. David and Jessica's story is a powerful reminder that, with effort and understanding, it's possible to rebuild and find hope again. Thank you for joining us on this emotional and inspiring journey. Stay tuned for more captivating stories and lessons in love and life.